Welcome into Hockey Sense, everybody. How we doing today? Is everybody feeling good? Listen, I forgot the Canadian or the USA jersey today, so we've got the Canada jersey up. But listen, I love Canada. I know there's a lot going on between USA and Canada and all the Gretzky talk and all this stuff happening right now, but I'm not going to get involved in that. We are hockey fans. We love the game. Canada is obviously a huge part of the game, and we're not going to get caught up in the political fight. So Canada, it'll stay up behind me for this edition of Hockey Sense. Fun show for you today. Pierre McGuire is going to join us. We'll kick around a lot of different topics with him. Jamal Mayers will obviously join us later on in the show for his weekly visit. Looking forward to catching up with Jammer. First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every week. First Community Insurance Agency. Yeah, you heard that right. I don't have to tell you about insurance premiums going up, because they do. First Community Insurance Agency, you heard that right. Insurance goes up every year. You know, it just automatically renews, and you don't even know that it's a higher premium. You got to do your homework. First Community Credit Union, a name you know and trust here in St. Louis, wants you to know about the First Community Insurance Agency. They can offer you a quote on anything from homeowners to auto insurance to health insurance, even for your small business. Their dedicated staff knows insurance. They can help answer several questions. Any questions you have, you got to ask the questions. They want you to ask questions because they've got the answers for you. Visit firstcommunity.com, click on the insurance tab, learn all about it. Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Download that app and do it today. So many of these locations, by the way, for Dirt Cheap, they have the drive-through locations. They have curbside pickup. You don't even have to get out of your car. You can do all your shopping from the app and then don't have to get out of your car. How nice is that? Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop, locally owned by the Wallace family. I mean, they are just getting it done. Don't sleep on the party supplies, too. Everyone knows about the beer, wine, and booze and all of that, but they've got great party supplies on the cheap. Great cigars, too. I'll throw that out there. Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Four Hands Brewing Company, get that mango lemonade hard seltzer, the Camistrick Podcast hard seltzer. Wherever you get your Four Hands Brewing Company products, they've got that incredible tasting room, downtown St. Louis, 1220 South 8th Street. Check out all the 1220 wine and spirits, the vodkas, the gins, all the premium wines and spirits. And the great tasting rooms, one in Kirkwood. That's like date night. Although you can take the kids there too. Food from Peacemaker. They've got food from Peacemaker in the downtown locations as well. And then the Chesterfield location, which is just incredible. Take the whole family. They've got the lawn outside, big screen TV, games for the kids to play. It's perfect for the parents and adults to gather and have fun. And the kids, you don't have to even worry about them, man. They're out there playing and doing their thing. So check that out in the Chesterfield location. They've got an airport location coming up very, very soon as well. The Blues have won 3 in a row. Yes, you heard that right. They've won 3 in a row. And so much talk about the trade deadline coming up and all of that. And we'll get into it with Pierre McGuire, but obviously with Jamal Mayers as well. Any Maple Leaf fans that are listening, and there's a lot of talk about Brayden Schenn. I wouldn't count on Brayden Schenn going to Toronto, even though Toronto is probably needing a third-line center. Schenn would be a perfect fit for them. But I just don't know if they can come up with the necessary package to that appeals to Doug Armstrong and the Blues. I know he's got 3 years left on his deal, and you could say, hey, just give him away. Anybody who's going to take Brayden Schenn, just get the contract off of the books. But I don't think you can approach it like that. He's your captain. He's one of your better players right now. He's a core player. He's playing his best hockey of the season right now, playing with Holloway and Kyrou. So he's playing with a lot of confidence, and the team is playing with a lot of confidence. In my opinion, this year is a little bit different than what we've seen in past years when the Blues have made some moves at the deadline and traded popular players like a Paul Stastny or a Ryan O'Reilly or a Vladimir Tarasenko, for example, Ivan Barbashev. These guys were all really good players, and the Blues were always close to being in a playoff spot, even when they made these deals. But they were coming off a run where they had made the playoffs every year. They had won a Stanley Cup, obviously, and the pressure to get back into the playoffs wasn't as high or as strong as I think it is today. I mean, missing the playoffs 3 years in a row, that would be tough to handle, I think, for any organization. Certainly for the Blues, they're no different. You know, financially, you want to make the playoffs. It helps you financially. But with that being said, it's a situation where you're close. The Blues are feeling good about themselves. They just signed Jim Montgomery. I think you got to give him an opportunity to go all in. and to try to get this team back in. I think the break was great for the Blues. They've come out playing their best hockey of the season. This is the first time all year they've won 3 in a row. So it's like, yeah, they're playing their best hockey. The power play's playing better. The PK's been much better. It just seems like they have the puck the whole game. They're in control of the games. They're never chasing the games. Remember all these games where they've given up goals early and they were chasing games. Now they got to figure out protecting leads late in games. We saw that slip up against Winnipeg, and you thought, uh-oh, here we go again, because that had happened several times prior to the Four Nations break, where the Blues were giving up goals against late in games when they had leads, and you just hate seeing that. So that happened again. You don't want to see that. And Jim Montgomery said one of his major points of emphasis for his team coming out of the break was handling adversity. How do you handle it? Well, that was an adverse situation, and they came back and they played well the next night against Colorado, won that game, won their next home game, and then to go on the road and beat, arguably the best team in the NHL in Washington on the road, and to do it relatively handily. They would score, Washington would come back, they'd tie the game, then the Blues would respond really, really quickly. Something's different about the team right now. Now, when you look at the 3 teams they're probably chasing, Vancouver, Calgary, Utah, those are the teams that are all in the group that are vying for that last playoff spot. You can put Anaheim in there too. They had a big victory over Vancouver last night. I think the Blues are the better team. They've shown it in head-to-head games against Calgary. I think they're better than Vancouver. Vancouver has just had issues all season long. They're not the team that we saw a year ago. Utah, the Blues should be better than Utah. But we're going to have to wait and see how that plays out. But my point is, I think when you're this close, your mindset's a little bit different than maybe where it was in previous years, where you knew you weren't going to re-sign O'Reilly at the time of the trade. You knew you weren't keeping Tarasenko at the time of the trade. You couldn't, or you didn't, I guess, choose to want to pay Ivan Barbashev. Although looking back on it, you wish you had Barbashev now. And that's a hell of a contract. You wish you had Pietrangelo now. That's a hell of a contract. Cap's going up. These guys are incredible players. I didn't mind the O'Reilly deal. I didn't mind the Tarasenko deal. The Barbie one, that was a little more difficult. He was 27 at the time, I think. He was right in that age bracket of the type of player the Blues were looking to acquire. And for $5 million, I think you probably could have got him for less than 5. Now, I don't know that to be factual, but even offering him 5 at the trade deadline would be a good deal. You had Brandon Saad making just under 5. That obviously didn't necessarily work out in terms of how it played out at the end. They sent him down to the minors. He went through waivers, ended up ripping up the contract. He didn't want to go to Springfield. So it worked out in terms of getting rid of the cap, but you would have liked to maybe hang on to some of these players. Getting a team to take Braden Shen, who's got 3 years left on his deal beyond this season at 6.5, and he's 33, is not going to be easy, especially when the Blues are going to want a return. They're not looking just to give him away. He's their captain, and like I said, he's playing good hockey right now. So I don't know if Toronto is willing to put together the necessary package to get to Braden Shen. I think they could put together a package to get Shen, but I don't know if they're willing to do so. So it doesn't sound like that's going to happen in Toronto. Stop with the talk about Colton Parayko, and this is where people just kind of drive me crazy. And when you get individuals who go on these bigger platforms in Canada who are supposed to be the quasi scout for this network internally, who say, I just underestimated Colton Parayko. I didn't know he was this good. Like, what are you talking about? Do you watch the NHL? This guy's a Stanley Cup winner. He's represented Canada in the past and other international tournaments. He was in the 2016 World Cup. He's been a good player for a long time. And now you see him and you're like, whoa, I had no idea. Come on. You're paid to watch the entire league. You got to watch the entire league. You can't just watch one team and try to fool everybody and pretend that you watch the entire National Hockey League. Same thing with Jacob Slavin. Everyone's known he's had a great stick. If you watch the league, you know this guy's been a dominant defender for a long, long time. Cam Jansen and I, we had him on our podcast, the Cam and Strick podcast. I said I want to get this guy on. I want to talk to him. First off, he's got a great story. He's a great human being. Does a lot of charity work. He and his wife do some great stuff. So I wanted to get to know him better, but also because I appreciate what he does on the ice. This guy is an unreal defender. And we just focus on the guys who put up the points and You got to watch Carolina, too. They've got a lot of great players in Carolina. Columbus has great players. St. Louis has great players. You saw that with Binnington. You're seeing that with Parayko. They've got the Thomases and the Kyrous. Things haven't always gone their way, but again, they're starting to put it together right now. You got to watch the league, and that's my only soapbox message that I'm going to send right now, because now we're getting a fan base all riled up pretending that Colton Parayko is available for a trade right now. He's not. You're not trading Colton Parayko. Jordan Binnington's name has been brought up as well. To me, that's a summer deal if you ever make it. And, I think he's got like an 18-team no-trade list that he submits to the Blues every summer. And so he can kind of dictate where things go. But I think that's a year out or it's a summer deal for Jordan Binnington. It certainly isn't happening between now and the trade deadline. But whenever you're a team that has good players and you're out of the playoffs, then this is what happens. You got to deal with the white noise. As Doug Armstrong told me on FanDuel Sports Network, I had him on prior to the Colorado game over the weekend during our pregame show. And he made a great point. When you lose and you underachieve, then that's life as an NHL player. You have to deal with the white noise, and there's a number of players who are dealing with it right now. Can the Blues win 4 in a row? Can they win 5 in a row? Can they win 6, 7 in a row? Can they go on a run here? This West Coast trip is going to be huge. 3 difficult games. Anaheim's playing some really good hockey right now. They handled Vancouver last night, 5-2. And you look at L.A., they're going to book in the road trip. They start with L.A. They actually play L.A. over the weekend here in St. Louis. Tomorrow night, L.A. comes to town. Then they have 2 games against L.A. coming up next week. L.A.'s a good team. But this West Coast trip, if they can come out of this West Coast trip, if they can handle their business at home, and that's one thing about the Blues, they're playing much better hockey at home. Do you know since like December 31st, their power plays top 10 in the league? I want to say they were 6th in the league going into last night's game against Washington. But, now you're getting your best players starting to drive the bus, and Colton Parayko getting his 14th goal of the season last night, or 15th goal? I mean, where's he at? Look how many goals Colton Parayko is now scoring close to the eye or close to the net. You just focus on this guy's ability. He's got 14 goals. You focus on his ability to shoot the puck, and he's got a heavy shot. There's no doubt. And he gets a lot on it. But it's not just the one-timer from up top, the big bomb from up top. This guy is activating in the offensive end. He's got great offensive instincts right now, and I think this is where the value of playing in the Four Nations tournament and being around all these other great players, it just gives you a little bit of confidence, but also you just watch how these guys read and react to certain plays and how they see the game and how they play the game. And Parayko has really elevated his game to the point where these guys are hard to find. They got him in the 3rd round. That just doesn't happen. It's very rare. And, the only way you get players like him, you look at Philip Broberg, you got to find ways to draft these guys. Broberg, the Blues got obviously in a offer sheet situation, but that's the only way you can get a Philip Broberg is by signing him to an offer sheet. Edmonton drafted him 8th overall, and they let him go. So unless you're picking in the top 10, you're not getting a Philip Broberg. Unless you sign him to an offer sheet, then you can get him. But that's the way you get players of his caliber, is you got to draft him. And the only way to draft players of his caliber really are to get into the top 10. This year's draft, people are saying how bad it is. I mean, it's not terrible. I mean, let's be honest. There's going to be some really good players to come out of the draft. I think the top 10 is still solid. It's very strong like you would find in any other year. It's just as you get deeper into the first round and throughout the draft, maybe it's not as deep of a draft, but there's still some good players. But again, I don't think this is the year where you want to acquire and just load up on draft picks when you compare it to other draft classes in the past. So we'll see how things play out. Justin Falk's name's been out there. You can find a taker for Falk. Maybe you look at that. But Broberg played, one of his best games of the year last night in Washington. He's just been flying. But you felt it coming. If you watched him play over the course of the last handful of games, his skating has gotten back to where it was prior to the injury. If you remember, he went down with an injury in Toronto earlier in the year, and he missed some time, 12 games, I believe. And that's a lot of hockey when you miss 12 games. Then you have to try to come back from that. They were playing him with Suter for a little bit. He's playing on his offside, which was a little bit of an adjustment for him. I don't think he looked very comfortable playing on his offside. Edmonton may have had him playing on his offside for a little bit when he was back playing with the Oilers. But getting him back on a strong side, now it just seems like the game comes a little bit easier for him, and you really see his ability to skate and just fly up and down the left side of the ice. He just creates space for himself. And I said prior to last night's game, I was actually talking to his agent. And I said, the biggest thing for me and the next step for him is to, establish that goal scoring ability, because he gets a lot of chances, find that ability to finish on a consistent basis, because he's been getting some great chances, where he finds himself one-on-one with a goaltender and just hasn't been able to, score in those situations. Last night he did. And that's a real positive, man. I think really get this guy going where he can become a point producer. He's not on the power play either. Parayko's not on the power play. Parayko's second among defensemen in even strength goals right now. He's got 12 even strength goals. 12 of his 14 are even strength. He's got one power play goal, one shorthanded goal. He's just having a career year, man. Everybody careers it at some point. And I don't know what his numbers are going to look like when it's all said and done. He's about to surpass, I think his career high is 35 points. And he's about to surpass his career high for points, because right now Colton Parayko is sitting at 33 points. So he's at 33. His career high is 35. He's done that on a couple of different occasions. So it's great to see for Colton Parayko. Hopefully they continue that. We'll get into the Blues a little bit more coming up with Jamal Mayers. That's later in the show after we talk to Pierre McGuire. So Pierre McGuire next, then Jamal Mayers. Looking forward to conversations with both guys. Again, First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every week here on all of our podcast platforms, including YouTube. Hope you enjoy watching the show. Thanks to our friends here at Half Coast Studios who are just getting it done. When I think about retirement now, I'm a ways away from retirement, but I think that is something that people do when they're much older than me. But here's the thing. It's never too early to start saving for retirement. With an IRA, an individual retirement account, you can potentially put some tax-deferred savings away for your retirement and lock in some great rates. You can also open up a health savings account to build a cushion for unexpected or routine medical expenses. You never know when those are going to come. I love how First Community is always looking out for you. The wedding loan, put some money away for the wedding loan, put some money away for Christmas shopping, put some money away for an unexpected health crisis. First Community offers IRA and HSA accounts, and there's no cost to you for any of these accounts. There are some eligibility requirements, but now is a great time to learn more about it. Check out firstcommunity.com. Dirt Cheap Fun Fun, your one-stop party shop. Of course, Four Hands Brewing Company. Blue Note Roofing, baby. David Novak just flat out getting it done. He is the best in the business when it comes to roofing. Now, we've been talking about the bad weather that is around the corner. We've had some snow this winter. It's been a cold winter. But now you're talking about hail season coming, the tornadoes, everything else that's around the corner. Prepare for it. Get yourself a new roof and do it today. Let insurance pay for it. They take all insurance companies, and they'll come out and give you that free estimate and take a look at it for you. And if you don't need a new roof, they won't do the roof for you. That's the kind of guy David Novak is, man. He keeps it very, very honest, and there's a reason why he has such a great reputation. Soffit, fascia, siding, gutters, whatever else you need, including roofing, let him take care of you. David Novak, Blue Note Roofing. Look for that big yellow truck with the blue notes all over it. Huge hockey fan. He's at every game. He'll talk pucks with you as well. Give him a call today, 314-920-5713. 314-920-5713. So we appreciate David Novak and Blue Note Roofing being such a important sponsor of what we do here on Hockey Sense, live from Half Coast Studios. All right, I'm Andy Strickland. Thanks for hanging out on a Friday. It's our Friday tradition. Pierre McGuire, he's next. Don't go anywhere. All right, back here in Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. Great to have you with us as always. Pierre McGuire, longtime voice in the National Hockey League. He's doing college stuff now as well. Former coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Been around for a long, long time. And he joins us now once again here on Hockey Sense. Pierre, great to have you.
Nice to visit with you, Andy.
What's going on?
Well, I'm busy doing a lot of college games, doing a lot. Just finished Mario Lemieux's fantasy camp in Pittsburgh, which was phenomenal. What an amazing thing Mario does for the community. They've raised over $40 million since he started doing his fantasy camps. It's just been amazing, and been doing a lot of college games. Been doing the Four Nations event, which I know people in St. Louis paid a lot of attention to, and did the Bean Pot tournament. So I've been busy. I haven't been home in a month.
Okay, lots to get into. First off, that's how it reminded me to get you back on. I saw a video with you at Mario's fantasy camp, and I know a lot of those guys, obviously, who are there, who have spoken so highly of the event. You were hanging out with Rick Tocchet, I think, what I saw in the video. So that's cool that you continue to go back there and still have that relationship with Mario. What's Mario like behind the scenes? I mean, he's so kind of quiet and reserved in front of the camera. I've tried to get him to come on the podcast forever with Cam and I. He gets back to me every time, Pierre. He couldn't be more polite, but he just likes to stay a little bit on the perimeter. You know what I mean? So I got to get him into the interior towards the blue paint. You got to help me do that.
Oh, he's not afraid to go to the blue paint. That I can tell you right now. He's a phenomenal person. As great a player as you saw on the television or in person, Andy, he's that guy, but better as a human being. He's an amazing man. He's been a tremendous asset to the city of Pittsburgh. He's been an awesome asset to the Pittsburgh Penguins since 1984. They're so fortunate to still have him in the loop. He's been a very good friend for a long time. You know, Fred Sherrill had the best line of all: win today, we walk together forever. And, you know, we won a bunch of stuff when I was in Pittsburgh back in the day. And those two teams in particular have been amazingly tight. And Mario's really the linchpin to all of it.
Who's the best player you've ever seen?
Myself, Mario Lemieux. The second would be Bob Orr, and third would be Wayne Gretzky.
And what separates? I mean, why that order? I mean, obviously you saw Mario up and close, and you saw all these guys up close and personal. So why Mario?
Just because he's 6'6". His ability to dominate the puck in traffic was amazing. He was far tougher than what people thought. I've saw him drop the gloves and handle himself real well in a different NHL. He didn't need people looking after him. But I think the biggest thing about him was he didn't look like he was moving very quickly, Andy. He was moving real quick.
Yeah.
And so he had a very tricky stride that people couldn't really gauge. You know, when you start saying who's the best ever, it's you know, your minutia is just so tight. So how do you separate? I mean, I didn't see Rocket Richard play live, you know, but I did see Jean Beliveau play live. I didn't see Eddie Shore play live, but I did see Guy Lafleur play live. So, you know, it's hard to say over all the eras. But I mean, when you're talking about Lemieux and you're talking about Orr and you're talking about Gretzky, I mean, that's very rare company.
Is Ovechkin going to go down as a top 5 player, top 10? I mean, it's amazing when you think about it. He's going to be the all-time leader in goal scoring. May not be considered a top 5 guy.
Well, if you start going all the way back to the beginning of time, he probably isn't going to be a top 5 guy.
Yeah.
But that being said, he's going to be the best scorer in the history of the National Hockey League, and it's going to be very difficult for somebody to catch him. There are a few records, Andy, that I'm very comfortable telling you will never get broken.
Yeah.
One, it is Glenn Hall, 502 straight starts. That's not getting broken.
Never.
So that's not getting broken. And the other one, and people don't really know this, but I'm going to share it with you, 11 straight games to win a Stanley Cup. The record was set in 1992. Think about it now. 11 straight games to win the Cup. So the Pittsburgh Penguins won their last 3 games in the second round against the Rangers. They swept Boston 4 straight, and they swept Chicago 4 straight. That record had never been set before that moment, and it's not even come close since to being broken.
I think L.A., their first Stanley Cup, they may have, and I don't even think they were sweeps, actually. I think they were up 3-0 on at least their first 2 rounds, and I don't think they swept either. So I'm just going off the top of my head to think if anybody's ever come close in terms of winning 11 straight in a playoffs season. Yeah. You're probably right, man. The competition's just too stiff. It's amazing. Did you ever think Ovechkin would get there?
You know, the first time I saw Ovechkin, I was with the great Scotty Bowman, St. Louis's former head coach, and obviously the greatest coach in the history of the National Hockey League. We saw him play as a kid on a travel team in Toronto, believe it or not. He's probably 13 or 14, I'm going to say. And you're like, this guy doesn't look 13 or 14. He was at a whole other level. Andy, and then what I remember the most is seeing him at the World Junior in 2003 in Halifax. I was broadcasting the event for TSN in Canada, and he put on a show as a 16-year-old. You're like, whoa, this guy's special. He's really unique. And then you meet him up close and personal, and you see how big and how physical and how athletic he is. And am I surprised he's where he is goal scoring? Probably, just because it's impossible to quantify those numbers. But when you saw the actual package of how talented, you say, well, this guy's really special.
Yeah. Saw him play last night. He didn't do much last night, but it was the first game in forever. He didn't do much. He's been on an absolute tear as of late. You know, it's funny you bring up the Beanpot. I watched the championship game. My son played some summer tournaments last year with the Junior Bruins, so we were around all these Boston families and New England families, and you know, you kind of get an idea of what hockey is like in that area of the country and how much they get into it. I've always watched the Beanpot when I can. A lot of times I'm working on the night of the championship game or whatnot. This year I wasn't. It was great to see BU win, you know, this year and just kind of get an idea of what it means to that area. How much fun is it working those games?
Well, it's fun, and my son played in it, so I really was a special gift for us as a family to have a chance to watch him in his last year of college hockey, playing the Beanpot, and it's something that never gets old. I've been going to the Beanpot since 1985. So it's something that never got old with me. I've always been a fan of it. A lot of my friends played in it. A lot of guys that I coached with or against worked in it. So no, it's an amazing testament to what college hockey means to the eastern part of the United States. I think it's becoming more of a national brand now, and I think that's because of people in Hockey East and at the ECAC have done a great job marketing it. It's special, and you had a chance this year. You're watching special players, you know, whether it's Ryan Leonard at BC, whether it's Gabe Perreault at BC, whether it's Jimmy Hagens at BC. You know, you look at Cole Hudson at BU. You look last year, you had Lane Hudson and Macklin Celebrini playing at BU. You know, just for our casual fans out there that don't understand the realm of how great these players truly are.
No, they're amazing. I saw BU play last year at Notre Dame. I was up there for a hockey tournament with my kid, and BU was there playing Notre Dame and saw Celebrini. Those kids were so big on the roster. I mean, you forget how big some of these college kids are, man. The rosters are getting bigger. I remember back in the day, like the USHL rosters, you had a bunch of little guys just running around. Now size has come into play in the USHL and certainly is transcended into college, man. These kids are massive.
One of the best coaches in college hockey is Greg Carville at UMass Amherst. He's really a phenomenal coach. He was Cale Makar's coach, you know, in college, and he coached for a long time in the NHL as an assistant to Mike Babcock in Anaheim, and he worked with Brian Murray in Ottawa as well. And he made a great point. I just did their game last night against UMass Lowell in Amherst. He made a great point. He said the jump from junior hockey to college hockey is bigger than the jump from college hockey to pro hockey. And I agree with them because of what you just said, the size factor of the college players, the age factor of the college players, the cross training that goes on with the college players. The training is unbelievable. You only have 2 games a week. So the rest of the week you're training, and the improvement from the start of the year to the end of the year, Andy, is phenomenal. It really is.
What impact do you think it's going to have now with the rule where CHL players can now play college hockey? Now they're eligible for college hockey. What are we going to see? What kind of impact and you know, for the casual fan, what's the biggest difference going to be?
We're going to have better players in college hockey because a lot of those kids that are going to leave major junior, they're going to come down and play college hockey. There are very few 18-year-olds that can play college hockey. Most of the players have to be 19 or 20 just because they're not good enough or strong enough at 18. So I think you're going to see the pool get bigger. You're going to see better players. And I also think eventually you're going to see expansion of Division I college hockey, where in non-traditional areas, whether it be in the SEC or whether it be in the Pac-10, you know, we've seen Arizona State thrive this year. What would not surprise me at all if USC, UCLA, Stanford got teams. It wouldn't surprise me to see Alabama or University of South Carolina or Clemson. They have club teams to draw 10,000 people for weekend games. It's unbelievable. So I think eventually what we're going to see is expansion. I can share this with you and your listeners, Andy. When I was a young college coach, I tried to recruit a player out of a midget AAA team in Quebec. He's gone on to be a Hall of Fame goalie. His name's Marty Brodeur. You know him. I know him very well. And we tried to get Marty to come as a 17-year-old to play for us. I knew how good he was. And eventually he ended up being an early pick for St. Hyacinthe in the Quebec Major Junior Draft. But I remember going up to try to recruit him, and it was nasty. It was frigid because all the junior coaches wanted to rip your head off. They did not want you invading in their territory. Now, all of a sudden, you'd be shocked. I was doing the Four Nations event, and I was getting calls from major junior coaches saying, hey, can we sit down and talk about how you think this thing can amalgamate between major junior hockey and college hockey and how we can have a better working relationship. So the whole temperature's dropped a lot, Andy, and it's made it a lot more civilized. I think better for players, actually, far better for players.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't ruin the USHL, and I don't think it will. And I talked to Ryan Suter about this a lot because he's an owner, obviously, in the league, and you just hope that it doesn't. And the American kid, the elite American kid, listen, now you have options, and you just hope it doesn't completely water down what's been the best junior league in the United States for so long,
I agree. That's fair. You've had the war going on with the USHL and obviously the BCHL. And, those are two phenomenal developmental leagues.
Yeah.
I agree with you, by the way. I'd hate to see the USHL get tarnished in any way.
Yeah, although Scotty Gomez, who's coaching in the BC League, he said, listen, we went from having 4 to 5 Division I scouts at every game to now having none. He's like, they don't come to our games now because, they can just go watch the WHL instead. And those are the players they're picking from. So, we'll see how it plays out moving forward. How are you looking at this trade deadline? I mean, do you enjoy the trade deadline? There's so much silly talk out there right now, Pierre. I mean, I'm seeing videos out there today. It's like it's hard not to comment on them, to be honest with you. When they're talking about Colton Parayko and stuff like this, it's the Four Nations. I will say one thing about the Four Nations is there are players who have been really good for a long time that people don't pay a lot of attention to, and Jacob Slavin being one, Colton Parayko being another. I mean, you got to watch the entire league. These guys didn't just become good players at the Four Nations, Pierre.
I'm so glad you said that. That's the voice of reason right there. I've been talking about Colton Parayko since they did every single game for the St. Louis Blues in the 2019 Stanley Cup run. I used to compare him to Shea Weber. I remember Larry Robinson, who was a consultant for the Blues at the time, telling Colton, you got to use that shot. You got to use that shot. Mike Van Ryan used to say the same thing to Colton. And what a great story I can share with you. I remember one of his first playoff series. St. Louis was playing Minnesota. And I see this gigantic hulking figure in the lobby of the St. Paul Hotel working on a computer on a laptop and with notebooks. And I see it's Colton Parayko. He looks like a big librarian. He has glasses on and he looks really studious. So I go, what are you doing? He goes, I got an exam to take. I want to graduate. So I'm taking a take-home exam and I have to take it this afternoon. This is in the middle of a playoff series. One of the nicest men you'll ever meet. I think he's a keeper. We know how good he is. You and I know. I'm glad the rest of the hockey world is finding out how good he is. In terms of Jacob Slavin, for years when I had the platform at NBC, I say, I can't believe this guy is not winning the Lady Byng. He's the ultimate matchup defenseman in the league. He only takes 4 to 6 penalties a year. He's the cleanest player you can ever imagine, and nobody likes playing against him. And finally, he won 2 Lady Byngs. Yeah. But it took peer pressure to show people how good this guy was, and now everybody realizes how good he is.
Well, he plays in Carolina, and you're right, Colton Parayko, he was studying even during the playoff run when the Blues won the Cup. He was taking tests and whatnot. But he's not going anywhere. He's got a great contract at 6.5. If you're running the Carolina Hurricanes, listen, man, they put themselves in a unique situation. I mean, they obviously got Jake Gensel last year. They let him walk. They got nothing in return for him. They didn't win the Cup. Obviously had a nice run, got to the conference final. What do you do now? I mean, you bring him, you give up some good pieces who you have under control. And if you lose Rantanen and allow him to walk after giving up on Marty Necas and everything they gave up to get him, and you let him walk, this happens 2 years in a row. That's a real tough look for Carolina. They better hope they win it. I don't know if they move him or not. I don't know if they can, Pierre. I'm just curious your opinion.
There are a couple tough looks. Chicago Blackhawks paid $5 million for a third-round pick. That's a tough look, too. That was part of that deal that nobody's talking about. But look I think Carolina's a well-built team. I think they're as well coached as any team in the league. Talk to any coach in the league. They'll tell you Brindamore and Jeff Daniels Tim Gleason do an amazing job there, coaching staff there. But Andy, when you look at it, Sebastian Aho is not as good a player as Nathan MacKinnon. He's not. So everybody's like, how come Mikko Rantanen is not doing better in Carolina? It's two totally different ways of playing. Sebastian Aho brings the temperature down in a game.
Yeah.
Nathan MacKinnon brings the temperature up. It's a completely different way of playing. And it takes some time to adjust. Necas and Drury gave you cost certainty. Rantanen did not. And so I think they've got some soul searching to do in Carolina. If they don't get this thing going pretty soon with him on a contract, I think they cannot lose Gensel for nothing, and they cannot lose him for nothing back-to-back years. Because if they do, I'm telling you, they're looking at 5 to 7 years of major pain.
Yeah, and I would think there's no way that Rantanen is going to sign an extension before next Friday's deadline. Why would he do that?
Well, then if he doesn't, then they're going to have to move him.
Yeah. Man, it's interesting. But you're right, Colorado, they just kind of play street ball, you know? It's like it's just controlled chaos the way they play. And
If you remember when Anaheim won, or sorry, excuse me, Tampa won their back-to-back cups, think about Blake Coleman, Yanni Gourde, Barclay Goodrow. That was an unbelievable template line for them. It really mattered back-to-back years. Those guys made a massive difference for them winning the cup. And then you look at what they have the potential to do in Colorado with Ross Colton, with Jack Drury, Miles Wood, the energy that that line could provide if they play them together. It reminds me so much of what Tampa was doing for a long time. The only difference is between Colorado and Tampa, talking about cup winning, is that they don't have Andrei Vasilevsky in Colorado. He's pretty darn good. And right now, I can tell you right now, Andy, I'm convinced, and I've heard it from a lot of other people too, Vasilevsky's back. He was struggling a little bit. I think he was fatigued, a little tired. He lost a little bit of his direction. Vasilevsky's back, and that's bad news for a lot of the people in the Eastern Conference.
yeah, I would agree. I would agree. And they've had a little bit of a rest too. They had played so much hockey for so long. They had a little bit of a rest. Florida's gonna be an interesting team to pay attention to because you don't have Matthew Tkachuk right now, but they've got some, big time players that are on expiring contracts. I mean, do you just keep these guys and go for it and risk losing a Sam Bennett for nothing, having him walk? You've got Ekblad, you got a couple other guys as well. I mean, they're in a unique situation too. Although getting back to Rantanen, Chicago's paying half his cap, like you mentioned. I mean, Carolina could retain another half. Somebody could get Mikko Rantanen for a quarter of his salary cap. Maybe Florida comes into play with a deal with Carolina, although they're in the same conference. So I don't know how that would play out.
Yeah, I don't know how that would play out, but that's the point of what you're talking about on Mikko Rantanen. And here's the thing with Florida, and I don't know how much is being talked about on your show or other shows. Brandon Montour is playing in Seattle. That's a substantial loss for them. Oliver Ekman-Larsson is playing in Toronto. He's playing big minutes for them. So you look at that, there's some issues there with those different teams. Sorry about this noise, by the way.
That's all right.
Just tell them can't take that call right now. But so you've got those two players that aren't in Florida right now. Ryan Lomberg's playing in Calgary. So they've got some losses from their cup winning team and their Stanley Cup final team that are going to be really hard to replace.
No doubt about it. Mitch Marner. Sounds like he's going to walk, although there's still time to see how that plays out. How good is he, in your opinion?
Mitch Marner's really good. He's really good. The reason why he's really good is he's very responsible defensively. He doesn't get enough credit for that. He's a top-end penalty killer. Doesn't get enough credit for that. He's a puck possession player. You can have him on the ice at the end of a period defending a one-goal lead. You can have him on the ice at the end of a game defending a one-goal lead. If you need to come from behind, you can have him on the ice. He can play the point on the power play, which a lot of people don't realize how gifted he is. His peripheral vision is phenomenal, vastly underrated. He and his acceleration, his two-step acceleration is phenomenal. So he's really good. Do I think he's worth $15 million? No disrespect. I want every player to make as much as they can, but I don't think he's worth $15 million.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Noah Dobson's a player who's getting thrown out there from the Islanders. I don't feel like a lot of people know much about him. Like, describe his makeup as a player.
Puck possession defenseman, great first pass defenseman, not overly great defensively, not a stout, robust, nasty player. So I would say he's a little bit like Alex Pietrangelo, but not as good. The characteristics are pretty similar. I don't think he's as good as Alex was and is.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I want to go back to the Four Nations. What do you think of it? I mean, you had all the theatrics, obviously, in the first game, USA versus Canada, but did you think it would be what it was?
No, I did not. I give the players full credit for what went on there. The players deserve a ton of credit. They got the fans addicted to it. They really did because of the level of play. I've never seen, I talked to Mario about this. We started the show talking about Mario. We'll probably finish it that way. I don't think anybody in our group in Pittsburgh ever saw the game played that quickly with so much pace, so much finesse, so much skill. There was a nasty equation to the games too, which showed the passion level of the players. I thought it was phenomenal, Andy. I really did. The players deserve all the credit on this one. They really do. The toll that has to be paid are all the injuries. You know, you talked about Matthew Tkachuk. That I felt terrible for Matthew. Brady Tkachuk, you know, still hasn't played yet for Ottawa, and Ottawa's reeling right now. So that's tough. And there were some other ones, Charlie McAvoy and I mean, so you know, you can go, and I'm sure there are other guys. Connor McDavid hasn't been the same.
Shea Theodore, you know?
Yeah, Shea. Connor McDavid hasn't been the same. In fact, I saw a quote from him early this morning say after the game last night saying, I'll be honest with you, I don't feel right, you know, coming out of that. We all know you're around it a lot too. This is my 35th year in the NHL. I've been in the league a long time. I've never seen something like that happen in the middle of the season. Then the guys have the ability to come back and supercharge right away. You know, and I did the World Junior for a long time, Andy. It took usually at the end of a World Junior, all those kids that played, and it's a substantial tournament. When they went back to junior or college, it took them 2 to 3 weeks to get back into gear.
Wow.
And I think when you play an event like this, it's kind of the same thing for a lot of those top players.
We loved it though.
Oh, hey, I loved it. Here's the one thing, and the league knows, I'm not telling tales out of school. I knew right after 2014, we were in Sochi for the Olympics, that they weren't going to 2018 in Pyeongchang. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, why would you waste this opportunity? Especially in St. Louis played a role in this. The TJ Oshie moment at Sochi was gigantic.
Yeah.
Remember that. You know, it was a huge moment for hockey. Everybody was talking about it. And the league didn't want to go back to Korea. There were a lot of reasons why. I know some owners were mad at the IOC and the IIHF. They didn't get suites. They didn't get insurance costs. I understand that. But I think it was a miscalculation. So we've missed 2 Olympic cycles. And now finally they're realizing we need to go back to the Olympics. Yeah. And it's going to a great venue. Milan and Cortina are going to be awesome events or awesome places for the event to take place. So I'm excited that the league came to its senses and they're going to go back to the Olympics.
As much as some guys had injuries and it takes them a little while to catch back up, it's amazing what it's done for a guy like Jordan Binnington from a confidence standpoint, because this guy has been lights out since he's returned from the Four Nations. He was actually playing pretty good before the Four Nations. But the way he finished that tournament and then getting all the recognition, just the way he's wired, you just kind of had an idea that this guy's going to come back and he's going to be on a roll, and he has been so far.
Great statement. Completely agree. Here's the thing about Jordan, and I very comfortable saying it. I think we have a big St. Louis following on this show. I did the 2019 Stanley Cup final in Game 7. If Jordan Binnington's not superhuman in the first 10 minutes, there's no way they win that cup. Not a chance. Not a chance. He was unbelievable in that building in Boston, and he was phenomenal. He deserves all the plaudits that he gets. He really does.
Same building, Pierre.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm aware.
Hey.
So are the Bruins.
Yeah, exactly. Same building, TD Garden. That's a special. I put a statue of Jordan Binnington outside of TD Garden. He's been that good in that. All the best, Pierre. Thanks for doing this as always. You know I appreciate it.
Oh, I know you do, and I appreciate being on with you. St. Louis is such a great hockey community, and I'm glad that Lindenwood's really starting to take off. I think that's going to be a tremendous story for college hockey. I'm really, really pumped about that. Yeah, it's awesome.
I get into it, man. We've got so many St. Louis kids who are playing college hockey right now, and obviously who have in the past, and who will continue to play. So I've always loved the college game, man.
You got a lot of guys playing in the NHL too. Those Tkachuk kids aren't too bad. That Trent Frederick kid's not bad. That Clayton Keller kid's not that bad. I mean, you go around the league, there are a few St. Louis guys playing in the league. That's a tribute to all the guys that stayed, the former Blues that stayed or came back and put together development programs. It's just phenomenal.
Pat Maroon's still there. Joseph Woll, he's not a bad player either. You know, he's starting
Joseph, Anthony Stolarz and Joseph Woll in Toronto. That's about as good a goalie tandem as you can have in the league right now. They're really good.
Are they a favorite if Florida's banged up? Or
I think if they add a defenseman and a third line center, Toronto's going to win the Stanley Cup.
Okay. Wow. Can we really handle that? Is there enough space in the atmosphere?
I don't think you were born in 1967. I was alive, but I remember it clear as day. And being a Montreal Canadiens fan and a kid that grew up in Montreal, I was really upset when Toronto won Stanley Cup in 1967. But it's been long overdue. You know, think about it. All the generations of Leaf fans, to be fair, they haven't been back to the final since then.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second. You guys had 3 finals the first 3 years you were in the league in St. Louis.
Yeah. Well, they just got out of the first round for the first time since '93 last year. So
yeah, it's amazing, right?
You can't win unless you get out of the first round, Pierre. I don't know if you. All the best, man. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Andy. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
We'll talk soon. You got it, Pierre. Take care. That's Pierre McGuire. Always enjoy catching up with him. I could really talk to him for another hour if I wanted to, but we'll go ahead and let him go and not keep him forever. So certainly appreciate his time. First Community brings us that interview as always. First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every week from Half Coast Studios. We're going to catch up with Jamal Mayers coming up next. Lordo's Diamonds, get that special someone, something special in your life. Lordo's Diamonds, baby. People are popping the question left and right. I saw somebody propose the other day at the Blues game too. So if you're looking to pop the question, you just passed up Valentine's Day, but you know there's never a wrong time to ask that special person in your life to spend the rest of their life with you. Go to Lordo's Diamonds, get the best customer service, the expertise that you desire, that you need, and the best price. That's what you find at Lordo's Diamonds, lordosdiamonds.com, right there in the heart of Ladue next to Truffles, 314-432-8008. Check them out online, lordosdiamonds.com. Let's step aside. Jamal Mayers will join me next. Lots to get into with Jammer. Don't go anywhere. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Pierre McGuire. Jamal Mayers now joins us. You're in a little bit of a mood this morning, so this is good. We're going to get the opinionated Jammer today, which is what we like. He's not buying the 3-game winning streak.
Well, listen, I like it,
Mhm.
but you have to consider the parameters that you're talking about. The trade deadline is a week away,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna tell me that yes, have they played extremely well and beat some really good teams and played with pace, and the defense looked good and
They're scoring.
they're scoring goals and playing fast.
Yeah.
They look fast. They haven't looked fast in 3 years.
No, I know. They had the puck the whole game.
Okay, so
Under control.
unbelievable. But you're telling me that sample size of 5 games,
Mhm.
let's give them 5 games.
3 games.
3 games, okay? Versus the 50 some odd games they played?
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
I shouldn't even say 3 games because they actually played pretty well against Winnipeg where they lost.
I do think
In
so.
a
I include that
shootout.
one. So, like, for me, I like it as a fan.
Mhm.
I think it's a good sign. You've got some good pieces, but it doesn't change, in my opinion,
Mhm.
if you're the manager, if you're making decisions at that level, what you're deciding to do with this team.
Let me throw out a few different things here. Does it change how you value certain players? I mean, you're right. Like, if you can get a team to take a specific player who you're ready to move on from, who's on an expiring contract, I get it. But I think the mindset has to change a little bit this year at the deadline versus the last couple of years. You know, they had such a long run of making the playoffs every year. They weren't stressed like maybe certain teams become when you miss the playoffs consecutive seasons. You know, they moved guys like O'Reilly and Tarasenko and Paul Stastny, you know, when they were just a couple of points out of the playoff spot. But they had been making the playoffs every year. They won a Stanley Cup. It was a different situation. Doug Armstrong came into the season saying he thought this was a playoff team, that they could make the playoffs. And the last thing you want as an organization is to miss the playoffs for 3 years in a row. So does your mindset change at all this deadline, knowing, hey, we really would love to get back into the playoffs versus moving on from a guy and getting a draft pick in a draft that appears to be a little bit down in terms of what we've seen in previous years?
I think you make hockey trades to make your team better.
Hockey trades are different.
Yeah.
I'm not talking hockey trades. I'm talking about just moving contracts to free up some money and getting a draft pick in return. Hockey trades you can never predict. If you're going to make a hockey trade, moving players to make your team better now, hey, listen, you can't predict those and you don't even know what those might look like because those are for general managers who are talking to other GMs every single day. They know those are completely different. I'm all for hockey trades all the time.
Yeah. I think you have to have an honest evaluation of where your team is. And sometimes you have to rip the Band-Aid off and have a little bit of pain to get to where you want to go. And sometimes you miscalculate. And it's okay. Yeah. You know what? What is Army supposed to say? I don't believe this is a playoff team.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And
he's said in previous years that we are in transition and, you know, we're looking to, you know, hopefully we're in position to compete for a spot or whatever.
I don't blame him. I think it's a fair assessment to say that that's why you've been through 3 coaches in a year and a half.
Yeah.
You thought this was a better team than it is. And that's okay. But maybe now it's time to reevaluate some of the things. Maybe you realize maybe it isn't our team speed. Maybe we weren't playing fast, and maybe Monty's done a great job of showing that this group can play faster.
Yeah.
So the glaring the fact that they couldn't keep up in some instances with really fast teams is probably less of a concern, but it doesn't change, I think, the honest evaluation you have to make about your group and where you're headed. You have to take steps, right? So is it fair to say that this team didn't take a step? I think it is. I think the goal was and should have been to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And, deciding and making decisions off of 8 games right before the trade deadline is not an honest evaluation.
So
either.
they're 3 points out.
And how many teams have to?
And I'm not going to include.
It's not the 3
I'm not
points.
going to include Vancouver right now because they're sitting in the second wild card spot. But between Calgary, Utah, St. Louis, who's the best team out of those 3?
St. Louis.
And Vancouver's slipping, right? They just lost to Anaheim last night. They've had their own issues.
Yeah.
They thought they were a Stanley Cup contender coming into the season.
They made their own issue. They have their, like you said, they have their own issues that they
It's just nonstop drama coming
that they've
out of
created. Yep.
Vancouver.
Yep. I think they perhaps even picked the wrong guy. Just to stick with.
In terms of Pettersson.
Yeah.
I think you still look to move Pettersson. He's got a no move that kicks in this summer. And you watch him play, Jamal, and let's face it, we watched him in the past and he looked like, okay, fine, commit to him 8 years, give him the 8-year deal. Now 11 and a half seemed a little steep even at the time, but you thought he was a rising superstar. You watch him play right now, you hardly even notice him. He is not engaged in the game. And if you can get somebody to take that contract, I think even if he becomes a superstar down the road, it's just not happening for you right now in Vancouver. For whatever reason, he's lost that enthusiasm. It's a risk, but I think if you find someone to take him, don't you do it?
Who's taking that contract? I don't know. I don't think you're going to find anybody to take that.
You and I talked about it. Was the first time I had heard anyone talk about it. This whole Rantanen idea about moving him.
And now everybody jumps on it.
And
how long ago did I say that?
And it makes the most sense. And Cam and I followed that up. Again, I gave you credit for it on our podcast after that. This, you have to. I mean, they lost Jake Gensel last year for nothing. They just moved players they had under control. This whole thing doesn't make sense. How you make that trade for Rantanen without having a contract extension in place is one of the worst moves I've seen in a long, long time because he's not signing an extension before now on the deadline.
But learn from history, right? Learn from history, in my opinion. So this is where I think people get confused. They want to give all these analytical guys all the credit in the world. They're smarter than smart can be.
Mm-hmm.
They understand how to fit and who can play with who. They can give you all the matrix. And I appreciate the value of analytics and the analytical thinker. But a hockey person would have told you, Chris Pronger's not going to Edmonton without a contract.
Mm-hmm.
When he's able to show, I've got this many millions of dollars, we're moving to Edmonton, even though that did kind of go sideways.
Yeah.
He doesn't allow the trade to happen without that extension.
Not going to Florida.
And Matthew Tkachuk does not.
Yeah.
These things I've repeated over and over and over again. No offense to Carolina. It's a nice place to live. They've got a really good team.
Yeah.
A really good system.
Good coach.
Good coach. Facilities.
Average.
Compared to the other teams and what they've done around the league.
Mm-hmm.
So when he walks out of Colorado, gets to Carolina, gets to the practice facility, gets to the main rink, is on campus at NC State, and he's looking around going, really?
I know.
But if he come with a $100 million bag, that's when you're okay with it.
I think they've offered him that since.
Too late.
But it's too late.
He's got all the leverage.
Exactly. And so, I looked it up, and I'm not making any excuses for him, but it is different than Colorado where they just play this fast break game and it's just controlled chaos. It's like street ball. You're not telling Nathan McKinnon what routes to go. He and McCarr are on a different planet in terms of how they play. They can play differently. And McKinnon or Rantanen was a great fit. He was a great third wheel for those two, and he had a lot of success because of it. Carolina plays differently. You look at Sebastian Aho, how he likes to play. He's not Nathan McKinnon, slows down the pace a little bit more. Rantanen, I think 4 of his first 6 games after the trade were on the road, then you had to break. Like he just really hasn't been able to find his comfort zone anyway, or really even to get to know the city or the organization or anything like that. I just can't believe that they would trade players like a Marty Necas, for example, who they have under control, who's still under contract beyond this season, and just take that risk after everything they went through a year ago. They look at it from the outside looking in, they look like a team that's being run by like fantasy hockey general managers, and they're making decisions that fantasy hockey GMs would make.
I don't play fantasy sports, but to me, you have to know where you are in the market. You have to know who you are as a team. You have to know the player. You have to do your due diligence. He's Finnish. You have a lot of Finnish players on your team.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe go talk to them.
Well, that's what they were. Listen, he and Sebastian Aho were friends and all that.
But more than friends. I want to know, would you sign here?
Mm-hmm.
No, I want an answer. If we're going to do this deal, we need an answer.
And, I've talked to his camp several times. They had a long time to do this. They could have had this deal done, the trade, a month before it happened, and they didn't get it done. And there were some back channel conversations, from what I understand, that were maybe going on. You got to be careful there because there's always tampering involved and whatnot. But I think they could have gotten the necessary information that they needed to know.
They always do.
Yeah.
They always do. It's not that hard. You have to do I'm not saying they didn't do the work. I think it was a massive error not to do it like a sign and trade like we've seen in the past.
You know what drives me crazy is I don't think people truly watch the league. You know what I'm saying? They watch a team that's closest to them. And it's like now everyone's on this this Colton Parayko bandwagon because they saw him play in the Four Nations, okay? And it's like this guy's been a good player for several years. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's represented Canada in the past. He's been in the World Cup in the past, playing on the young future team, whatever they call it, Team North America. So he's been on big stages in the past. Jacob Slavin's been a great player for a long time. And now it's like the rhetoric with all the media is like, this guy's got the best stick in the league. Colton Parayko's amazing. It's like he's always been good. And this idea that St. Louis is going to trade him now, he's got one of the best contracts in the league, making $6.5. Hockey trades, I've always said those are completely different. You're getting a superstar coming back the other way, and you can find a deal that you feel like makes your roster better now, and you do a hockey trade. Who knows how that plays out? But if you're thinking you're getting Colton Parayko at the trade deadline, it's not happening.
Well, I remember 2 years ago, people were Colton had a down year heading into that.
Injured.
Did not have a good year, and Army was patient, and I believe in his mind, the thought was they were going to give him till January, see if he could get himself back to where he was. There's also this ridiculous rhetoric around him, even in town, that he's not physical enough. He's not Chris Pronger. And I'm always like, you pay him $6.5. Focus on what he does amazingly well. Just because he's 6'5" doesn't mean he has to be Prongs. If he was Prongs, you'd be paying him $10.5.
Mm-hmm.
And
they might be paying him.
Right? And what you're realizing now is, wow, he does do a lot of things really well.
Mm-hmm. But isn't there a different type of physicality, though? The game's changed a little bit now, too. Like, Jamal, I don't see him too often, go into the corner and battle and not come out.
You're not telling me there's not people in town that wanted him to go and crush people.
They wanted him to fight.
Cheers.
They wanted him to step up and just destroy people. Exactly. But so my point is, there is different types of physicality, though, right? He boxes out in front. He wins net front battles. He wins battles in the corner. He wins races. It may not be the physicality people are used to when you look at big defensemen historically in the game, but he's still tough,
He defends extremely well. That's what it matters. I think that we confuse physicality with defending well.
Mm-hmm.
And he defends well. Does Josh Morrissey defend well? Yes. He defends differently with his skating and a great stick. For me, it's about the puck.
Mm-hmm.
Are they hard in the puck area? Defending wise, and does he have hard skill? He has hard skill.
Yeah.
His skill is He give and go, shoot the puck, jump in the play. It's hard skill. And soft skill, sometimes people confuse the two things. Soft skill has its place,
Yeah.
but you're going to have intermittent luck. Intermittent, you're going to wait for the opportunity. You're going to wait for it to happen. And hard skill makes it happen.
Yeah, and then he had the fight with TJ Miller or JT Miller, so it gets a lot of attention.
I think people think, well, why doesn't he do that for the Blues? And no. It's the moment. It's a different situation. That was more of a, if you will, staged fight.
Yeah.
Which really never happens.
Which Parayko turned down moments before that too. And Parayko told me the whole story. He was like, I'm a skater on warm up, and he's just like, hey, you want to go like early? And Colton's like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Are we fighting? Like, is this what happening? Is this what we're trying to do today? Like, no, not really. And then he asked him to fight right after Bennett and Brady went. And he's like, no. That's not really his thing, you know what I'm saying? And then he comes right at him in front of and now emotions are spilling over.
Well, then he kind of like questions his manhood.
So he's like, hey, fine,
20,000.
I'll fight you. Yeah.
He didn't give him a choice.
And he handled himself fine.
Unbelievably well.
Yeah.
Really well. You know, it's just, I think that was its own little thing that brewed over not having international hockey for 10 years. I think if people think that's going to happen every time Canada plays U.S., if we do this every other year or every 3 years, that's not happening. That's not going to happen.
USA's got to stop, like, in a way. See, Canada just approaches these games like it's not like it's just another game. I'm not saying that. I think but they've won so much in the past that I think they don't get too up for it. You know what I mean? They're ready to play and they're ready to go. USA is like, we're going to go crazy. And then, oh yeah, we're going to have to play them again. And now you have a gold medal game. And it's like, and maybe you're not bringing that same level.
I'm not sure if you've talked about this, but I think the U.S. made a massive mistake. When you knew that Matthew, after 5 days off, was touch and go, I could argue at 50%, I would still want Matthew there and present and on the bench. Contrary to what some people in Canada are saying.
Right.
I think that was a good decision. The Kreider decision to play him over Kyle Connor was, let's think about this. Kyle Connor is 7th in the league in scoring. To suggest that he didn't have a good tournament,
Number 1 American in goal scoring.
Okay, yes. Has 31 goals on the season. Is on pace for 100 points. And gets scratched over Kreider when you don't know if Matthew can be able to finish the game.
So now you're down to 10 forwards.
And Kreider, to me, can't make that bump. Like that
play
to
him
me,
6 minutes.
No one's even talking about that.
I think some people.
That's a massive mistake.
I tweeted it out that night. I think some people have brought it up, but the fact that you knowing that Matthew was hurt, you don't know how much he's going to be able to go. And Kreider didn't play in the first couple of games of the tournament. They put him in, he scored his first shift, so now you want to bring him back. But knowing, I mean, if you're going to play him 6 minutes, that's a coach's decision right then and there. Like, you don't know if he can play at the necessary pace or whatever in that moment, in that game. Connor's a guy, one shot can just completely change the course of the game. And everyone's blaming Mike Sullivan, and obviously he's the head coach, so he should take the brunt of the blame. But I think those types of decisions have to include other head coaches that are on the bench.
They do.
John Tortorella, John Hines, Billy Guerin's got to have a say in that too.
What's the commonality between those three first guys you mentioned?
What, of Hines, Tortorella, and Sullivan?
Yeah. Where do they coach?
In the East?
Yeah.
No, Hines is in the West.
Okay, but they don't see. I don't think they see
Hines
him
is
enough.
in division now.
They didn't see him enough. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that to me, when you don't think Matthew can finish the game, and you're going to need a guy in the top 6.
Yeah.
It's not Kreider. That's the easy decision. It's like, okay, Matthew's a hit and miss. He might not be able to finish the game. Who are we putting in?
Right.
Kreider or Connor? Well, Connor can go play.
Who's just a pure sniper.
And credit to him, never said a word.
Never said a word.
He could easily say, "Are you serious right now?" Never said a word, and he's played really good at hockey the last 3 games coming out of the break.
Yeah.
That to me is not many guys have that much.
Shifley never said a word either, and he was left off Canada's roster, and he's having an incredible season.
Yeah.
They probably could have used him too.
Yes.
I mean, you got Jarvis and Konechny and some of these guys.
Like I think Jarvis takes his back seat for Shifley in the next. for the Olympics
You
if
think? Yeah.
Scheifele continues to progress. Scheifele plays harder than people think.
Yeah. Oh, he's smart.
And like that's the thing that I really want to impress upon young players
Mhm.
watching the game.
Mhm.
Sometimes they get so caught up in the flash and they
Right.
highlight. And like if you just watch Winnipeg,
Yeah.
there's a reason why they have success offensively. All their I think it starts with Lowry being the captain. There's a hardness to their game
Great cap.
that's required. And it filters into the entire lineup. So even their skilled players are hard. And I'm not saying physical. I'm saying hard in the puck area.
Yeah.
And you look at what even here in town, what Thomas is able to do. He is hard on the puck.
Yeah. You don't move him off the puck.
You don't move him off the puck. He steals pucks. If you take it from him, he gets it right back. That hardness in the puck, you can't understate it enough for young hockey players. Like what it looks like is second and third efforts. What it looks like is protecting the puck. What it looks like is stick battles. What it looks like is 50-50s along the wall. Who's coming up with those? That hard skill, I think, kind of gets maybe not talked about enough.
Thomas, he's like a tree trunk, that guy.
Yeah.
Like you just don't. When he goes head in with a defenseman, like he doesn't move when he gets hit. And he's not tall, right? He's not very tall. He's just a big, strong kid. Is Cairo showing you anything this year?
Yeah, I think that, he's a guy who on a winning team, you're never complaining about him.
No.
Right? So it's hard because you think back to a guy like who was kind of a polarizing figure in some respects in Corey Stillman, right? Remember when he was in town, you have to think back 20 years, but there are players on teams when you're a good team, you need cookie monsters. You need guys who love to score. But when you're not a good team, it kind of gets exposed or you get to kind of see the parts of them you don't like.
Negative parts of the game, yeah.
And it's like when the Blues become relevant and like top 6, top 8 in the league again, which hopefully happens in the next couple of years, you're thankful that you have Cairo. But on a team where he's the main guy, him and Thomas, you get to see his warts, and he's not going to be the complete
And you
player.
want him to drive your team, yeah.
I want him leaving the zone early when there's a wrist shot coming to the net.
100%.
I want him looking for breakaways.
Yeah.
I want him leaving the zone early. I want him trying to get behind the D.
Yeah.
And it's like, is he going to get – I just don't want him, like, not being hard in the puck.
Yeah. No,
I want him you just got to fix, and I'm sure Monty talks about him, shows him intermittently clips of, like, here's where you could have made a safer play. And just kind of mitigate some of that poor decisions he makes in critical areas, and then live with some of the mistakes.
He and Holloway are playing great together. They've got great chemistry. You look at that two-man game, and they make Schenn look quicker by playing with those two.
Yes.
You agree with that?
Yeah, because if you let Schenn play off of them, he gets to the net, uses the net as a magnet, and then he understands the give-and-go game and lets those two guys wheel. And then he has to be comfortable with, I'm not going to have the puck much.
Broberg, outstanding game last night. This guy's been skating now back to where he was at the beginning of the year. Of course, he got hurt, and then he missed some time, and now he's just, they kind of put him on his offside for a little bit. He just didn't look very comfortable there. Now he's back on a strong side, and he's just a skater who I said this earlier on the show. I was talking to his agent the other day. Like, I felt like the next step for him is to be able to finish on his chances. Gets a lot of chances, and he wasn't finishing, hitting the goalie in the chest, and just wasn't scoring. Last night, he got a couple of grade A chances, and he put the puck in the back of the net on both of them.
Yeah, I think that watching Parenko has helped him. And I think Monty said it best, I believe, the other night when he said, you know what? He's learning to trust himself. He doesn't have to, question his decisions offensively. I think sometimes when you're a D and you're in a new system, when you first come, you're just like, I'll just do whatever. Then he gets coached a little bit. He's like, you didn't make it. And then he starts to question. Now he's back to, just trusting himself. And I think that, you watch Parenko and how he moves. I think you're seeing Falk doing more of that, trusting himself.
Just activating, yeah.
You're just like, all right, we all can do that.
Yeah.
And I think that when they play like that,
Fowler.
so hard to defend.
I think Fowler's helped Parenko, too.
Oh, just it's going to be interesting to see what the mix looks like and what they decide to do. It appears to me like, you're listening on offers for Falk and Leddy.
Mm-hmm.
I think they both have term remaining, 1 or 2 years. One of them has 2, one of them has 1.
Yeah.
I
Leddy
believe
has
Led's
one
has
there for
1.
this year, yeah.
So, I think that you're seeing the progression of some of these younger guys, that it's probably time to like have some, as well as they played.
Yeah.
Those are decisions I think that are easy ones to make.
Would you move Shen?
That's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Captain, always tough to trade your captain. I think that his stock perhaps won't be higher. And you got to think about how far away are you from where you want to be.
Yeah.
If the answer is 3 or 4 years,
Yeah.
then you have to move him.
He's got 3 years left. Yeah.
Right. If the answer is 1 or 2, then you keep him. I think the answer is 3 to 4.
Okay. It's a good answer. He's got 3 years left at 6.5. So I think if you find a trade partner that he's willing to go to, because he can block that too. But being the captain, Ryan Suter, and check out an interview. I just did a long form interview with him. I think it was like 40 minutes long on the Blues YouTube channel. I've never really heard Ryan Suter speak in a long form setting. And we got into a number of things, including his buyouts and all this other stuff that he goes through. His kids living in Minnesota and everything. But out of nowhere, he just talks about how Braden Shen's one of the best teammates he's ever had in his career. This guy's been around for 20 years.
Wow.
And one of the best captains he's ever had. And how he sent him a text the other day telling him what a nice person he is. And I think Shen makes everyone feel comfortable. And, he's that kind of that guy that brings everyone together on the road and, kind of organizes a lot of things, brings guys over to the house. I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting. You can check that. I think the Blues posted the clip on their social media channels yesterday, but go watch the whole interview with Ryan Suter. And he doesn't want to go anywhere either. I think Ryan Suter, he wants to play another year.
Yeah.
He told me he wants to play another year. He thinks he can convince his wife that he could play another year, but he wants to bring his family here. So, like, in terms of the trade deadline, if the Blues don't want to keep him next year if they have no interest, then I think he would maybe be okay leaving at the trade deadline. But he would like to stay here for another season.
Yeah, I think they're going to make that determination on the young defenseman, the big tough kid, left-hand shot. I'm having a brain cramp.
What, from the Blues?
Yeah.
In the minors?
No, playing. He's in and out.
Oh, Tucker.
Yeah. I think they're going to make a decision on where he is in his development and if he needs another year or not.
Tucker's just, listen, he can come in and give you what you need for those 5, 6 games. And then sometimes he needs a reset.
Well, no, but is he a guy who can be an everyday guy?
I don't know.
Well, either he is or he isn't.
Tried that.
Either he is or he isn't. They got to make that decision, and that's going to determine what they do, I think, with Suter.
Because I don't know if Suter could ever handle not being an everyday guy.
No, not after playing against him. He played 28 minutes a night forever. Doesn't get tired.
No.
Yeah, and speaking of the Shens, I did text. There's a funny picture on the internet of Luke and Braden when they were in their like a Red Wings jersey, and Luke looked like he had a few too many cookies. So I text him like, "Oh, can you imagine these two boys played 1,000 games in the NHL?" And he's laughing. I always used to say when he was a rookie in Toronto,
Luke or Braden?
Luke, I always used to say to him, "It's a good league." Even when things were tough and we weren't winning, and Wilson would be getting on him. I'm like, we'd be eating filet mignon on the plane. I'm like, Luke's still a great league. And so I texted him, "That's a great league," and he said it sure is. So, pretty cool. Happy for him and his parents, and
I'm
pretty
glad
cool.
you said that. Man, two kids that play 1,000 games.
That's crazy.
Both 5th overall picks. And Jeff and Rita Shen, man, 2 of the best. So I'm sure we'll have do something with them in one of these upcoming games too. I'm sure Blues are gonna recognize him obviously before the game. And we'll talk to Jeff again. We've interviewed him so many times. I hate going back to the well and be like, "Hey, you want to do another interview?"
Interview the mom.
Yeah, I know. Well, she's been on with us several times too. Yeah, good for sure. Who brought you today?
Well, there's no question about it. Bartolino's. They got 5 restaurants: Bartolino South, Bartolino's Osteria, Chris's Pancake and Dining, and Chris is at the Docket. And the new one, you've been there, unbelievable, Bartolino's Twin Oaks. Forged many lasting relationships with their customers. Their family motto: cook good food, serve plenty. 50+ years in business. Only 2 places to dine: at home or at one of Bartolino's family of restaurants.
There you go. Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Well, you know what? They've got 44 locations. Dobbs is offering
that we know of.
It's unbelievable. They have deals on everything. Whether you're still worried about the winter weather, whether you drive a car, light truck, van, SUV, hybrid, EV, Dobbs has a team of experienced tire technicians and ASE certified associates to service them all. Go to Dobbs.com for more, and they have unbelievable winter driving tire and service deals that'll keep you having big savings on your next set of tires. Go to Dobbs.com for more.
And again, Blue Note Roofing, 314-920-5713. Call David Novak today. Let him come take care of you. Bad weather's around the corner, Jamal. We're going to be getting some hail and tornadoes and all that stuff. It'll be spring, I mean, you're gonna need a good roof.
Did the groundhog see a shadow? What is going on?
No, you're gonna need a good roof. Cam tells me we're gonna have a crazy spring. That's what he tells. He's like the prognosticator, so he knows. So
What is he?
So the roof. Make sure your roof is intact, gutters are intact, siding's intact. But if you have a need for a new roof, new siding, whatever, after the bad weather, you
Hey,
call.
Andy, take a log off the fire in here.
Are you
Jeez,
hot?
burning up.
Oh my God, I'm cold in here. 314-920-5713. Call David Novak today. Look for the yellow truck with the blue notes all over it. Jamal, thanks for coming in, as always.
Appreciate it.
Have a great weekend.
You too, buddy.
Any hockey
Blue
this
Note.
week? Oh, Blue Note Cup, baby.
Sunday.
Good luck to everybody out there at the Blue Note Cup. I'll be out there Saturday doing some interviews. If there's a coach that wants to come on camera, let me know.
And I got my maroon on today. Big
For
fancy
just a match?
game.
I know. I went to the game against Ladue last Wednesday. Good luck to my boy Anthony Capoletti, the head coach, and all of the Smet. They're going for a three-peat, playing Chaminade. Chaminade's never won a mid-stage title.
Ooh,
So look forward to seeing how this one plays
it's
out.
gonna be a good game.
Now he's on the DeSmet bandwagon.
Well, that's where Crew's going next
I
year.
know.
So what are you gonna do?
They can't use him, though. He's not eligible to play tonight.
No, he's got to grow.
Good luck, DeSmet. And thanks for everybody for joining us. For everybody here at Half Coast Studios, appreciate it. As always, our Friday tradition, Hockey Sense. Have a great weekend.